On October 24, unannounced, out of nowhere, we had a visit from a lady called Sandy. Normally it is said that by October it is all over when it comes on to the hurricane season. And in fact, I would like to say that Hurricane Sandy, in terms of life, was very kind to Jamaica because only one person died. By the time it got to Haiti, Cuba, some 20-odd persons were killed. It moved into the States, over 100 persons were killed. And the Jamaica Agricultural Society certainly would like to express our own condolence to the family of all the persons who lose their lives during the hurricane, the family of all the persons who did that. You know, we think that we could not have a hurricane of this nature and of this magnitude, costing the agricultural sector some $1.5 billion and counting, 36,000 farmers and counting. Because I still maintain the view that when we have access to most of those farms through the rural communities, that number could go up. In fact, the number of $1.5 billion does not include coffee, cocoa, in terms of estimated loss. Therefore, you could see the numbers going up. And the JAS, therefore, thought it was important, in cooperation with the Ministry of Agriculture and government, that being a farmers' organization, we should get together and discuss the challenges that we face and to see how we can complement with government a recovery program that can be implemented quickly by RADA in collaboration with the JAS and all the other commodity association to get the agricultural sector on track for recovery as soon as possible. Therefore, we dubbed this session today, we alert all the parish representatives and the commodity leaders to consultate with RADA, with the JAS district presidents, with the farmers on a whole, and come in and say to us what these damages are, the type, the quantities, and certainly how we can come up with a recommendation for recovery. So we dub it the JAS Hurricane Sandy Production Summit. And we think that this summit has been successful because coming out of these discussions, we are going for recovery and we are going for growth. We are going for growth within the agriculture sector. We have been badly hit, but you know, we need to bounce back. And on that note, even before I speak about the framework of what we are suggesting to work with the government and to work with the ministry and to work with RADA and to work with our farmers, to work with the member of parliaments, the councillors, everyone, to see how we can get the agricultural sector running again. Because if we stop running in the agricultural sector, we can't make it, we'll die. Our import bill will go up, and in fact, the further, which is now $1 billion and counting, and we need to ensure that we bring that down. I'd like to pause on behalf of the Jamaica Agricultural Society and all the farmers in Jamaica. And no doubt, I know that our Prime Minister have already done it, but we want to congratulate President Obama for being re-elected for second term as President of the United States. And our prayers are with him, and certainly to also congratulate his opponent, Mr. Romney, for giving him a good run for his money. But coming back home, and certainly we will express our congratulations through the American Embassy on behalf of the farmers of Jamaica. The crops that were lost included coffee. Coffee suffered badly. Close to $150 million in the Blue Mountain areas and $10 or so million in the lowland areas. Coffee suffered in the region of about 30%. And we were estimating in the Blue Mountain crops somewhere in the region of 210,000 boxes, which was just incrementally higher than the 205,000 boxes we did in 2005 as a country. So it will reduce our production to somewhere in the region of about 180,000 boxes. And it was a time when the recovery for the Blue Mountain coffee was happening. The prices were still pretty steady because the Japanese and the European and the Americans were not prepared to pay more than they are paying now. But in fact, because of extra marketing that has been taking place, they were prepared to buy coffee. And to that extent, we think that the injection that was announced by the Prime Minister yesterday was very timely. And we certainly want to thank FirstSun for coming on board in terms of a commitment of several thousand tons of fertilizer for the coffee sector. The Prime Minister announced that we'll get some 22,000 bags for coffee. And I am aware that the Ministry of Agriculture and the Coffee Industry Board is having discussions with the players within the industry to expedite that delivery as soon as possible. And that is important. Going for growth, get the fertilizer out there, get it in the hands of the coffee farmers, and certainly help them to restore their coffee fields as soon as possible. There's another important point as we deliberate, that anytime we have a disaster, in particular coffee and cocoa and maybe banana, but coffee and cocoa, you find there's an attack as it relates to disease. For example, American leaf miner for coffee. And we are certainly suggesting that some of that fund, which is $40 million, should also be used to purchase chemicals that can arrest the coffee leaf miner or any one of those diseases. So we think that the injection is timely for coffee. We welcome it and we commend the government for that move. We'd like to say to the coffee farmers in terms of going for growth, clean up the fields. Don't wait. The support is coming, but don't wait for that. As Mr. Spalding will tell you, it's important that you push ahead, clean up your fields, and certainly try and prune your coffees so that it can be prepared for the next crop. The other crop that was badly damaged was bananas. And in terms of coffee, I'll speak to an insurance issue later on as a part of our recommendation. But banana was almost wiped out. As the representative shared with us, they are estimated that the loss to the banana sector was $500 million. $500 million of damage. There are about 13,000 commercial banana farmers, and more than 50% of their farms were damaged. There are 100,000 farmers in total, in terms of who are in bananas, and we need to find a way, Mr. Spalding, between the JAS RADA and the banana farmers, and I know Morrissey, our board, is meeting next week, to make sure that all of these 100,000 banana farmers are registered farmers in the JAS and also register with RADA to ensure that they can be captured and the benefits can come to them. But of the 13,000 commercial banana farmers, because I don't know if you know, that 30% of the banana consumption in Jamaica is produced by non-commercial growers of banana, like myself and Chris, who plants less than 500 banana trees. We think that as a part of the resuscitation of the banana industry, we should be planting bananas and plantains as borders, using it as borders for other crops. And as a part of the strategy to fast track that recovery program. The catastrophic fund that the banana sector has only have 200 farmers registered under that fund. And what the banana sector is saying is that the sum that is in that fund is a fraction of the damage. And therefore, the banana farmers need to be covered under this recovery program. And to that extent, we embrace and support and commend the government for the move to reduce the interest rates to the banana farmers to 5% through the PC Bank and to waive the special processing fee. But we are making a call that this reduction of 5% should be expanded to all farmers who got damage as a result of the visitation of Hurricane Sandy. We think it's a good move for the PC banks to do. We think it's a good move for the government to also do. But there are other cash crop farmers who were affected, and our recommendation from the JAS is that the PC Bank should extend this facility to the other farmers who were affected. So if there are coffee farmers, cocoa farmers, banana farmers, plantain farmers, coconut farmers, cash crop farmers, they should also extend that facility. In addition to that, going for growth, the JS is strongly recommending that the People's Cooperative Bank should reschedule the loans for farmers who were affected as a result of Hurricane Sandy, and should also provide refinancing for those particular farms and farmers who were affected. And why should they do that? They should do that because the cash flow that they would have generated from a crop to service the loan is gone. The 90% of the banana is gone. The 25% of the coffee is gone. The cash crop in the parishes that we will speak to St. Thomas, Portland, St. Andrew, St. Mary, St. Catherine, Clarendon, a part of St. Anne is gone. And therefore we're asking the Development Bank of Jamaica and the People's Cooperative Bank to open a special window where they can reschedule and refinance these loans for these farmers affected so we can go for growth. The other crop that was significantly affected was cocoa. Cocoa is a tree crop, and we all know that it takes a long time for the cocoa plants to come in. And in the parishes that we had cocoa plantations, cocoa was affected. In fact, the estimates for the damages are not included in the overall estimates. And therefore, we think the cocoa industry need to come in also for special emphasis and special support because it is a growing industry. It is an industry that the demand for the Jamaican cocoa is almost 7 to 8 times of what we are producing now. So as for banana, as for coffee, as for cocoa, we think that there is a need to have a massive resuscitation program. And primarily, what the government has announced is a move in the right direction, an intervention in the right direction. And certainly what the JS is supporting it, and we're asking that it be expedited as quick as possible. But we need to rebuild better. You know, Sandy has taught us a lot of things. And Sandy has come at a time when the country is also having negotiations with the IMF. And I think, and from where we sit, it is going to give us another opportunity to see how we can expand the development of the agricultural sector in a very big way. Because the Jamaican economy, in terms of sustainability, in terms of job creation, in terms of the reduction of imports, in terms of building up NIR, the agricultural sector is the major driver towards that. And that's why we don't think we should be panicking. We don't think we should be disheartening. We don't think we should be acting as cross purpose. We should use this opportunity as a way to unite and really build the agriculture sector and by extension the economy. The program that has been announced, the relief program that has been announced by the government of Jamaica, we understand will, and this is understandable, will be concentrated predominantly within the eastern sections of the island, which is St. Thomas, St. Mary, St. Anne, Portland, Clarendon, and St. Catherine. These are the parishes who were affected. Farmers in those parishes were affected. Nevertheless, we think that consideration needs to be given to other parishes who were affected to a lesser extent, such as St. James, Westmoreland, Anova, and others. These are, based on the reports that we're getting here today, while the damages to the farmers in those other parishes is not as significant as the parishes in the eastern belt, there were some levels of damages. And to that extent, as a part of the whole rebuilding process, we think at some stage, maybe because of the concentration, now we need to get back the parishes who were badly affected. We need to look at those other parishes at a later stage. The JAS is appealing for persons who want to support the agriculture sector to contribute to a special fund that we will launch today. We think that let me back up a little. The issue of agriculture is tough business, and every one of us who have been in the agriculture sector for a while know that between 2004 and now, the country saw somewhere in the region of 10 disasters. Close to 8 hurricanes, we had drought. And we in the Jamaica Agricultural Society believe that disaster is a cost of doing business. It is a cost that we cannot avoid. And I'm depressed each time we have a disaster. It wipes out the farmers. Sometimes the government panics because there's no allocation to respond. People want to get back to their lives because a large number of the population and the labor force relies on the agriculture sector, over 20%. And we always need to find a way to get back the farmers and the rural citizens, 49% of them, back on track. And I think in particular at a time when we are talking with the IMF, when we have celebrated 50 years of our independence, and over the next 50 years we have a responsibility to ensure that we cessate the contraction of the economy and we go for growth. We go for growth. In other words, we need to find an economic framework that incrementally over the next 50 years, the economy will grow. And we can only do that if we find a mechanism to attract investors to the sector. And crop insurance and agricultural disaster risk management is fundamental to that process. And that's why the JAS is making 2 calls, and we are supporting the efforts of the government to advance the parametric insurance program that has been now funded by the World Bank. That's a program that has been on the table for 6 years. Those discussions started 6 years ago. I think that we need to set a particular timetable, and if we need to bring the World Bank to the table again, let's expedite that process. But we need to conclude those discussions so that we can have some sort of catastrophic scheme that will provide benefit for the farmers. The second area is that, and this is where the JAS is going to play a critical role, in particular through our central marketing system. We need to find a contributory crop insurance scheme, a framework where farmers who are willing to be covered can contribute to that scheme, and when there is a disaster, they get coverage. Let me say it can be done in one of 3 ways. 1, where the farmers make a contribution. 2, I feel that as a part of the insurance of creating a stable macroeconomic framework, we need to make an allocation in our consolidated budget. And if it is not used, if we don't have a disaster in one year, that amount should be rolled into the second year, into the fund, to build up the fund. So over time, if there is any gap between disaster, because we have been projecting some input in such a fund, you can draw it down in such a way that there can be a meaningful intervention in the agriculture sector when that happens. And the final way is really to go to the multilaterals and to say to them, we are trying to do something to ease the shock that the economy will face if we have a disaster, and we need to find a way to provide quick support to the agriculture sector. And therefore we say to you, as a part of some of the support that you give us, you need to provide us with, so we're asking you, not need to, we're asking you to support this effort. So agricultural crop insurance, this Sunday has brought this issue into sharp focus, and I think that, quite frankly, we need to discuss it. We not only need to discuss it, but we need to actively engage a framework that will drive that process. I'm very happy to let you know that the Jamaica Agriculture Society, we are talking to some very knowledgeable people in the insurance business. We're talking to the Ministry of Agriculture as to see how we can be of help to that process. Because while we have the commodities as coffee, cocoa, citrus, sugarcane, and banana that has a commodity structure where that can be collected easily, the structure is not so designed as it relates to vegetables and cash crop. And to that extent, the Jamaica Agriculture Society is seeking to implement the central marketing system to act as a vehicle of buying from farmers and supplying farmers with input, but where those farmers who have contracts with the JAS want to participate under such scheme, we can facilitate and accommodate that process. So we think that it is extremely important for us to advance and push the issue of agricultural crop insurance, because I think if we have agricultural crop insurance, it will help to move the contribution of agriculture to GDP from 6%, and it will grow incrementally to where we want it to be in the region of 12% over the next 5 years. The National Red Peas Program. I mean, we launched that red peas program, Senator, at the right time. Last year, for example, the country imported 7 million pounds of red peas, the same thing we call kidney beans. 7 million pounds of red peas that can be grown in Jamaica. What has happened is that the importation of red peas has run a lot of farmers out of the commercial planting of red peas. And the JAS is making a special call to Jamaica to support our efforts and to say to all the farmers that we need cocoa farmers, coffee farmers, banana farmers, and other cash crop farmers to go into the massive planting of red peas for two reasons. One, it is a short-term crop that can generate cash flow within 6 to 12 weeks. And we can plant red peas now, and we can get it in time for Christmas. The second thing is that when you plant red peas, the whole process of planting as red peas as an intercrop, it puts back nitrogen to the soil. And what that will do, it will reduce your cost and your application for fertilizer. And we think that there's a big opportunity here. This morning, for example, one of the largest importers of red peas, and I will not call the name now until we work out that framework, but he says to me, Senator, I am one of the largest importers of red peas in Jamaica. And if you can get your farmers to plant red peas, I am committing that I will sign a memorandum of understanding with you to buy all of that red peas. We have to discuss the price. But we think those are moving the right direction, and those are how we go for growth, right? And try to contract our appetite for imported food. Today we launched the Jamaica Agriculture Society Disaster Relief Fund. We have established this fund at the First Global Bank, and the account number is 105-105-0236. Let me repeat the number, 105-0236. And the Jamaica Agriculture Society is also using this opportunity to call on the Member of Parliaments, the councillors, to come on board. If you have fund to complement the relief program and you have given support to RADA because the JS and RADA is seeking to work together, we are accepting contribution in cash and kind. And we are giving total commitment that what we're actually doing is complementing what the ministry and what RADA is doing. And we want to also make a special appeal to the seed companies, those who want to see the recovery process in the agriculture sector. We cannot sit down and not do something. We certainly need to go for growth, go for the repositioning of the agriculture sector, and go for the recovery of the areas that were damaged so that the Jamaican economy can be firm and steadfast. All of what we're doing is going to do a number of things. It's going to complement the agri-processors. So some of the agri-processors could be running into problems if we don't get a fast-track recovery program. It could affect the school feeding program. It could affect the price of food. And that's why early on this week, without any hesitation, the JS called on the Consumer Affairs to conduct a probe in the movement of the price of agricultural produce to see if these middle persons are exploiting our farmers and exploiting the consumers. Because what happens is that some persons go to places where the agricultural sector was not damaged, like in St. Elizabeth and those areas, get the produce, Chris, at the existing farm gate price. and then goes into the parishes that were affected and then mark up those food prices in excess of 50 and some cases 100%. And we say that is scandalous and we condemn it fully. And that's why we say that the consumer affair, we're not pointing any fingers, need to go out there, establish the facts, and if persons have been found to be acting in that way, then the strongest measures should be implemented. We think that it's a time for us to be patriotic. It's a time for us to go for growth and development. If there's a good reason for the movement of price because of demand and supply, then so be it. But we don't want the type of rapacious behaviors to be exhibited where our farmers continue to be exploited. So I want to thank the members of the JAS board, the commodity leaders. I know it has been very, very difficult for you, and the parish managers and the regional managers. But I think the response that we have done today will certainly help in the whole recovery process. I want to take the time out to compliment RADA. Give Mr. Spalding and RADA a hand, and I'll tell you why. Because over the years, Chris, there has been this tension between RADA and the JAS. There don't need to be any tension. We can work together because we are talking about building agriculture. We're talking about, there's a perception of tension. There is a perception of tension. But this disaster, and we say to RADA that we are available and we are working in tandem with them, and where a farmer is not registered, then the JAS, under a framework and a cooperation that we have worked on with RADA, will be able to take around, our parish managers will be able to take around the registration form, fill it out, verify that I know this farmer from the JS, and take it into the RADA office, and the RADA officer will accept that as a valid registration number and a valid registration form. We don't think that we should use this disaster relief program to disenfranchise any farmer. While at the same time, I want to make a special appeal to farmers outside there. If you are not registered with RADA, you should be registered. If you are not a member of the JS, how can you not be a member now? You need to come to be a member of the Jamaica Agriculture Society, because by so doing, we can certainly build a strong economy. And in closing, I believe a government exists to help people where people can't help themselves. And I think that the response that has been delivered by the Prime Minister within 10 days after the disaster, the Jamaica Agriculture Society and the Minister of Agriculture and his team would like to register our commendation to government for the response that has been given so far. We think that more needs to be done, but we understand that there are challenges that the economy faces. But what I think is very important now is for the agencies of government to move quickly to administer what the government has announced. We want to thank all the other agencies and the multilaterals, the European Union, the embassies that has come on board, the fertilizer company, to support this effort. We are in a process to rebuild Jamaica in a very big way. While we register the loss of crops, farmers still has problems as it relates to roads. We know that the National Work Agency is doing their best, but we ask that there should be a further push to get some of our roads cleared as soon as possible. We know that JPS is also trying, but places in Portland is still out of lights, and therefore we want to Portland and St. Mary, Portland, St. Mary, and St. Thomas. So we really want the utility companies to make a big push. And you know, all of that has brought into sharp focus the need for us to come up with a major framework that can reinvest in the development of the rural infrastructure. And what I'm talking about is for the government to approach multilaterals, including the IMF, or persons who want to partner with us, to identify long-term funding. I'm talking 35 years, when Chris will still be 60, right? And I am willing as a Jamaican, to commit to contributing to repaying monies, long-term debt, that will bring better quality of life for the rural people, right? Better water supplies, electricity, road and the rural infrastructure. Float a 30-year rural development bond that is going to rebuild the infrastructure, attract tourism to the infrastructure, bring tourists from abroad to tour farms because they can access the roads, they can come on the farms and they can reap, whether it's berries or pears or banana, whatever it is. In the same way we raise long-term fund to build the highways, that same mechanism, I think that there needs to be a concerted effort as a part of our roadmap to make sure that the next 50 years we can achieve developed country status, that we build out the rural economy and we ensure that every single cent that we borrow under such a scheme is spent towards the development of our rural communities. On that note, I want to thank you very much. We are energized. We are not daunted by the challenges that we face as a result of Hurricane Sandy, as a part of an additional revolving program to be disbursed to those young people who may have lost rabbits as a result of the hurricane. And as I said earlier, we are also providing with the SCIBO JAS branch with two power, SCIBO and CHEPSA with two power saws to help farmers to clear fields, but with some very clear instructions that those power saws should not cut down any growing trees. What we want to do is to remove trees and that is in the road and use them as contour, use them as mulch, and clean up the fields. And we are going to use that as a part of a tool pool program. It will be managed by the JAS, and we will be providing those farmers, whether you are JAS farmers or you are non-JAS farmers, we will provide you with the services at a reasonable cost as a part of our push to help clean up and go for growth.
The other thing, Mr. Chairman, like no mention is made of St. Anne. A lot of damage has been done in St. Anne. I noticed they talked about Portland.
Yeah, we did. Sure. Yeah, we did.
But we have had quite a bit of damage in St. Anne.